Hello again. Today's footage is finishing the subfloor for the second third, or the middle third, of the spare room trailer. So I've got a little bit of cleaning to do, but at this point we've got all of the temporary floorboards out of the way. We've got the floor step riser built and secured and in place. I'm going to start working on that, and then I did realize I still need to put a few end blocks in between the floor joists so that the subfloor will have something to sit down on. And I guess that piece actually could have been avoided had I not put a girt on top of the outer floor joists, the two pressure treated rim joists. I just realized that. I was trying to think how to simplify this, for the next trailer, because we do plan on building a couple more. The next one is going to be built for a refrigerated processing room, and then we'll build one that'll be a commercial kitchen, basically. And those, unfortunately, are a ways out. We'll see how quickly we can get to them, but they've got to have a spot cleared and leveled. They're actually going to go basically in front of the barn. Is the plan. That way they'll have power and water nearby and can function the way they need to, because if you're going to have a refrigerated processing room, you have to have constant power supply, so that's rather important. But for the most part, this is pretty straightforward. The subfloor is actually fairly easy to go down. The nice part is that you're not actually worried about creating a solid floor per se. You do want a secure solid surface for the the actual floor to go down on, but if there's gaps, then that's not actually a huge deal. And in fact, if you're using grain lumber, this method is ideal, because then you can allow that lumber to shrink naturally. That's what we're doing here, is we're only putting one screw in the middle of each board so that each board will be able to shrink as they do dry. And you'll notice, obviously, the walls, the gaps between the siding boards have started to definitely show. That's kind of what I'm referring to. I started putting the battens up on the south side, and I think I'll probably finish the trim and the battens on that south side just for looks from that direction, and because we have started using that area to store things, because we kind of need to. The couch that we were given by a friend is over there, and we've watched a couple movies in here, and it's actually notably more comfortable than trying to watch shows in the camper trailer. So that'll continue to get used, and in fact, as soon as we get things cleaned out of here, we plan on being able to have friends come over and set up a table and some chairs and play games or have dinner or whatever. So we'll actually be able to use this space in the meantime. But I think I'm going to leave on these east and west walls, I think I'm going to leave the battens off for probably the summer, so that there's still a breeze that comes through there. And during a storm, we were sitting out there during one of the storms a couple days ago, and there is a little bit of a breeze, which is actually ideal, so that'll help everything continue to dry without having to worry about the moisture in there. But it's not enough of a breeze that, like, if we were sitting down and playing a game, we'd have to worry about cards getting blown around or anything like that. So I think it'll actually work out really well as it is until it dries enough that we can do the insulation. And so I've got the step done now, and I'm just cutting this first piece. If you're into geometry, then this is kind of a fun little challenge. You start out with a triangle, and then your next piece is a trapezoid, and the next piece is a trapezoid where the top is equal to the bottom of the previous piece. And then you just keep working your way until you get to one of the corners, and I don't know what that piece would be called, a trapezoid with a tip cut off. And then from then you keep working across the base as parallelograms, and those ones are pretty nice because then you can actually just use one as a wow, I just totally brain farted the name of as a pattern. Apparently it's too early in the morning. But you could use it as a pattern until you get back to the next corner, and then you end up with another you end up with a parallelogram with the tip cut off, and then you go back to trapezoids that decrease in size, and then you get to that last corner, and because I have a post there, that one is actually a little bit of a complicated cut, but we'll get to that in a minute. So technically you could do this entire subfloor without actually pulling out a tape measure. If you didn't have the posts to deal with. In fact, that's basically what I did with the little floor riser section, was I just started with the triangle and then used that to measure the next piece with a square to make the 45-degree angles, and then just worked my way across. And so here you can see what I was talking about. There's just a little board so that I can actually attach both sides of the flooring pieces. We'll get all these attached, and then I'll continue on my way with the first trapezoid. Okay, I'm going to have to think further on this part, though, the next time. So the reason that bottom girt was put in place was just to have something to secure the siding boards to, because the girts are intentionally wider than the pressure treated 2x4 or 2x6, sorry, that's out there. So that way, when the siding comes down on the girts, it actually is about a half an inch away from the 2x4. And when you add the 20-degree angle that goes away from the building, that means that the water is actually dripping roughly 1.25 inches away from the 2x6 rim joist. So it just helps to make sure there's as little chance as possible for that water to come out here. So this is what I was talking about. So I've cut my first 45-degree angle, and then instead of trying to measure everything, I just grab that previous board, put that out here, and mark where the next cut needs to go. And then I'll double check and make sure it fits nice and snug. Go grab my next board. Start with the first 45-degree angle. Put it in place. Mark where it needs to be. And this one I realized I could make them a little bit longer to just make sure that they were a little bit more snug. It's not going to affect anything in the long run one way or the other, but I did notice that there was a little bit of a gap, and so this one's going to be a little bit longer. But then I know where I need to make this last cut, and then I can put it in position. Now, this is where I was talking about, so the corners do get complicated a little bit because of these posts, but that's okay. So you just have to measure how far along that 45-degree angle side, and then make one more cut. And now this is going to be a parallelogram instead of a trapezoid. But I can still use the board. I just make this next cut is going to end up being a different angle. I did come up with a slight problem here. I was hoping to get all of the boards to go past to a certain point, so I would be able to just use the existing floor joists there that are already closer together and not have to add another runner, but I decided that I would have to put a little board on there so that they all would fall on a seam. And I didn't want to, I figured I would rather lose a little bit of insulation in that particular spot to make sure that both boards fall solidly on a support board at the ends of each subfloor, rather than trying to split them and have them in half of a floor joist, which is acceptable. I mean, that's the way it's technically done in construction. And you can see the kitty decided that she wanted to come investigate, and she's decided that she really likes having this big open floor space. And then she found the couch again. Usually she runs away when I'm using the saws. I was actually kind of surprised. I found out that she actually, once she laid down on the couch, she just kind of laid back there and watched. This particular conversation that Emily and I are having was kind of a little bit of a revelation. Like I've mentioned before how stressed. Oh, she must have come back in. Well, okay. See, as soon as I start cutting, she decided to run away. She snuck back in, and when I was finished, I found her sleeping on the couch again. So that's interesting. But ledges, I'm not afraid of heights. I can be as high as anything. But if there's a ledge that I can fall off of, then that ledge terrifies me. We had an instance where we went to deliver took some rabbits to try and breed them with a new friend, and we'd never been to his place before, and he's very much off grid, and there's a river that runs through his property, and you have to drive over a bridge to get onto the main portion of the property where his house is. And it's it's in a bit of disrepair. We'll put it that way. We actually stopped as we came up to this bridge, and were pretty reluctant, hesitant, cautious. it was clear that he had had done some recent work and thrown down some recent decking boards that were pretty good timbers. I think they were 4 inches by 12 inches and spanned, basically half the bridge. And we tried calling him and confirming that this was the right. There's only one road, and he said drive all the way to the end of the road. So that's really the only way to go. And we could see that there was, in fact, driveway gravel and on the far side, and so we decided to cross it, and I had to roll down the windows and was listening for any creaking sounds, and that was quite unnerving. But anyway, that just was a side tangent. We recorded that and shared it with some friends as we left his property, and it was still just as unnerving. But the point was the conversation that Emily and I were having. I didn't realize how much stress I had internally as I was working on this flooring, until I had like that first, 5 or 6 floorboards in place, and then I stepped off one of the floor joists and onto the flooring and turned around to do something else and just realized that all of that stress that I didn't realize was there was just gone as soon as I was not trying to walk over the floor joists. And I realized there's phases. So when I had the floor joists with nothing in between them, then that was obviously the most stressful, because everywhere you step you're looking straight down at the ground, which is like 3 feet below you, or below the floor joists. And then once I got the mouse barrier boards in, that became a little bit less stressful, because there was something there. You're only looking down 6 inches instead of 3 feet, but it's still stressful because I don't want to step through one of those and break them and have to replace them. And then once this subfloor was in, it was just, the stress was just gone. And so I had to pause and explain that to Emily, because there was a point where I realized that and almost broke into tears, because it just felt so good to suddenly have a solid surface to stand on and not have ledges everywhere I'm looking. Oh, yeah. The things we do. So when we get to this last corner, that is by far the most complicated cut. And in retrospect, if I had just done it as 2 different pieces, it might actually have gone together significantly better. But for whatever reason, I did this up in the bedroom section as well. I decided that the post had to be cut and notched out of the last triangle piece. So instead of a triangle, it's like a weird shape. But got it done, got everything in there, and at this point the only thing left to do is put a screw in each end of them just to hold them in place until we get the subfloor. So thank you for watching. God bless you and yours as always, and stay safe and healthy out there. We'll catch you in the next one.